What if the very emotions you chase, love, validation, excitement, are actually holding you captive? And what if the most powerful men aren't chasing these things at all, but rather observing them from a quiet, unshakable distance? Pause. Thoughtful expression. Deep gaze. Sounds a bit counterintuitive, doesn't it? We're conditioned to believe that happiness lies in pursuing these intense emotional states. But what if there's a profound, almost dark truth hidden beneath that common understanding? What if true strength, true peace, is found not in succumbing to every emotional impulse, but in mastering them? This is a revelation illuminated by the ancient philosopher Epicurus. I remember a time when I was utterly consumed by this chase. I made decisions not out of clear thought, but out of a desperate need for external approval. I remember one specific instance. I poured an immense amount of energy into a relationship, constantly trying to be what I thought the other person wanted just to avoid conflict and keep the peace. The emotional highs felt great, but the lows were devastating, pulling me into a spiral of anxiety and self-doubt. The moment it ended, I wasn't just heartbroken. I was exhausted, empty, and realized I had lost myself in the process. That experience, that raw regret, sparked a deep personal search. I started to question if there was a different way to live a path to genuine contentment that didn't depend on external validation, and that's when I found the unexpected wisdom of Epicurus. That personal experience, that profound moment of regret, truly sparked a different way of thinking for me. It forced me to confront a deep-seated issue, the immense societal pressure placed on men to seek validation through relationships. From a young age, we're bombarded with messages that imply a man isn't truly complete, truly successful, or truly happy unless he has a partner, a family, or is constantly surrounded by people. We're taught that our worth is measured by our desirability, by how loud we are, by how much we acquire, or by the romantic love we receive. But I'm here to tell you that true strength and genuine peace for a man come from within. They don't stem from external noise or romantic entanglement or even societal applause. Think about it. A man is most truly invisible, and by that I mean most immune to external pressures and manipulative forces, when he is completely at peace with himself, when he isn't constantly seeking permission to exist or validation from women. This challenges a deeply ingrained societal narrative. We're often told that solitude is a problem to be fixed, that true freedom is a red flag if it means you're not conforming to the relationship escalator. But what if the strongest man is precisely the one who doesn't need a partner to feel whole, the one who doesn't require constant external affirmation? Toi tung hi min pai chio ai jo je juot shao hoi chap nan hong jio jo chi hien toi mat ji chin min. I realized I was chasing an illusion of completeness when the truth was the emptiness I felt wasn't from being alone, but from not being myself when I was with someone. This is where Epicurus's core philosophy offers a radical alternative, suggesting that the highest forms of pleasure and well-being aren't found in the relentless pursuit of external desires, but in the absence of pain and inner turmoil. It's a path to true self-sufficiency. This path to true self-sufficiency away from external validation becomes clearer when we expose a pervasive societal issue, what I've come to call the Pano family curse. The insidious idea that a man's identity, his very essence, is somehow unlocked by the approval of women. We are subtly, or sometimes not so subtly, taught that our purpose, our worth, our happiness must be confirmed by a partner. Think about the narratives we consume. The hero always gets the girl. The successful man has a beautiful partner by his side. This constant reinforcement can lead men to believe that needing another person to confirm their purpose is not just normal, but desirable. But here's the uncomfortable truth. When you constantly need external validation, you're trading your soul for a smile. You're giving away your inner compass, letting someone else hold the key to your self-worth. And a man who constantly needs applause, who is dependent on external affirmation, is easily manipulated. He'll bend, he'll break, he'll compromise his true self just to maintain that fragile sense of being enough. This is precisely where the timeless wisdom of Epicurus offers a profound counter-narrative. Unlike the relentless pursuit of fleeting pleasures or the chaos of endless desires that modern society often pushes, Epicurus refined life by finding the highest form of pleasure not in acquisition or chasing, but in the absence of trouble and suffering, what he called ataraxia. He argued that true contentment comes from a state of inner peace, free from the disturbances of both external circumstances and internal turmoil. For him, the ultimate joy wasn't about seeking out constant stimulation, but about eliminating pain, fear, and unnecessary disturbances. I realized I had given the key to my happiness to someone else, and Epicurus showed me how to take it back. For so long, I believed my happiness was conditional, dependent on how others perceived me, or how a relationship was going. But Epicurus taught me that true joy is an internal state, a fortress built within, impervious to the whims of others. It's about cultivating inner tranquility, where your peace is not contingent on another's approval or presence. This fundamental shift from chasing external pleasures to cultivating internal peace is the cornerstone of a truly self-possessed life. This shift from external validation to internal peace, this self-sufficiency that Epicurus champions, directly confronts one of the most pervasive and often unspoken fears for men, the fear of solitude. It's not merely about being physically alone. It's the profound, sometimes terrifying prospect of being truly, unequivocally by yourself, with no distractions, no external validation, and no one to reflect your identity back to you. Why is this so frightening for many men? Because solitude often forces them to confront the man they've avoided. This isn't some external boogeyman. It's the collection of unaddressed goals, the unacknowledged weaknesses, the dormant strengths, and the silent insecurities that we've been too busy or too scared to face. We often fill our lives with constant noise work, romantic pursuits, hobbies, endless entertainment, precisely so we don't have to sit with ourselves and confront these uncomfortable truths. But here's the paradox. That very fear, that very avoidance, is what prevents us from truly evolving, from becoming the strongest version of ourselves. What if the very freedom you're unconsciously resisting, the freedom that comes from needing no one, from standing entirely on your own 2 feet, is actually your final form as a man, not a deficiency to be fixed? What if true strength isn't measured by how many people surround you, but by how complete and unshakable you are when you are truly alone? A man who is genuinely single in mind, not just in marital status, is a rare and powerful entity. He doesn't need external validation because he is the table. He provides his own foundation, his own sustenance, his own entertainment, and his own inherent sense of worth. He is the source of his own contentment, not a seeker of it from outside. He's not waiting for someone to complete him. He is already whole, building his kingdom from within. There was a time when I actively tried to fill every empty space with busyness, with relationships, just to avoid facing myself. I'd jump from one demanding project to the next, from one social gathering to another, simply to outrun the quiet whispers of my own soul. I convinced myself that being constantly occupied meant I was productive, successful, and happy. But that was precisely when I missed the greatest opportunity for self-discovery. It was only when I deliberately carved out solitude moments of quiet reflection, long walks alone, deep dives into books and my own thoughts, that I started to truly meet myself. It was uncomfortable, yes, stripping away all the external definitions, but it was also profoundly revealing. That's when the real work and the real growth began. That's when the real work and the real growth began, by embracing solitude. But to truly appreciate the power of deliberate solitude, it helps to contrast it with the alternative, the often unseen suffering of domesticated men. What do I mean by domesticated? These are men who consciously or unconsciously have allowed societal expectations to strip away their inner wildness, their inherent self-sufficiency. They are the ones who date to feel valuable and marry to feel validated. Their sense of self-worth becomes inextricably tied to the presence and approval of a romantic partner. And as a result, they often end up suffering under a crushing weight of unmet expectations, constantly performing, constantly trying to be enough for someone else. Epicurus centuries ago offered a profound counter-argument to this very modern predicament. He famously advised us to avoid unnecessary disturbance, ataraxia. Think about that. How often do modern relationships with their inherent demands, compromises, and emotional complexities become sources of unnecessary disturbance? For men who outsource their happiness and identity to a partner, these relationships can quickly devolve into a form of polite servitude. If a man's value his peace, his very identity depends on his partner's approval, then he effectively becomes a butler in an invisible palace. Constantly catering, constantly seeking to please all for a perceived security that is in reality a gilded cage. I've seen many friends and even myself exhausted, not by being single, but by the ideal of love society paints, which often demands we mutilate ourselves. It's not the absence of a partner that drains them. It's the relentless effort to conform to an ideal, to maintain a facade, to constantly prove their worth in a relationship that leads to burnout. They are tired because their idealized vision of love, heavily influenced by movies and social media, demands a self-mutilation, cutting off parts of their authentic self just to fit into a mold. They exchange their autonomy for an elusive promise of companionship, and in doing so they lose their innate power. The Epicurean man, in his clarity, recognizes that true peace begins when the need both of the stomach and the ego ends, when he no longer requires external validation to feel complete. The suffering of the domesticated man, tethered to external validation, highlights the profound need for a different path. And that path revealed through Epicurus is about reclaiming your divine essence through solitude and self-mastery. This isn't just about coping with being alone. It's about discovering that genuine joy and unshakable stability can be found precisely in solitude. A notion that stands in stark contrast to much of what modern society preaches. We are bombarded with images of happy couples, bustling social lives, and the constant pursuit of external stimulation. But Epicurus tells us that true pleasure lies in tranquility in the absence of disturbance, which is far easier to achieve when you are not constantly managing external demands and emotional drama. For many, singleness is viewed as a waiting period, a problem to be solved, or even a personal failing. But I argue that singleness is not your enemy. It is, in fact, your last chance, a profound opportunity to restore your divine nature. As a man, it's a chance to stop the relentless romanticization of dependency, to break free from the narrative that tells you you're incomplete without someone else. To thrive in the Epicurean sense is about the quiet conquest of inner chaos. It's not about conquering the world, but mastering your own internal state, finding peace where others find turmoil. We live in a world that constantly tells men to hustle, to acquire, to prove their worth externally. But Epicurus and ancient wisdom whisper a different truth. Stillness is strength. It's in the quiet, undisturbed moments that true power is cultivated. Yet men are so often trained to seek being wanted as the ultimate measure of their worth. We learn to decorate a cage, meticulously building a life that looks impressive from the outside with all the trappings of success and companionship, but is ultimately a prison of external validation. Instead of us building a kingdom within ourselves, we focus on making our dependency look appealing. When I accepted solitude, I stopped chasing what was outside of me. This was a massive turning point for me. I stopped chasing fleeting moments of happiness derived from external sources, whether it was a new relationship, a promotion, or social approval. Instead, I began to build a solid kingdom within myself where I am the true king. This meant dedicating time to understanding my own values, cultivating my own interests, and finding contentment in my own company. It was about creating an inner world so rich and fulfilling that external circumstances or the lack of a partner couldn't disturb my peace. It was a liberation unlike any other. This is the sacredness of singleness, not a void, but a fertile ground for true self-actualization, a quiet revolution of the self. Building that kingdom within yourself, finding true contentment in your own company. This is the ultimate act of self-mastery. But let me be clear, until you genuinely understand and embrace this Epicurean approach to emotional detachment, you will likely remain a slave to impulses and external forces. Your decisions, your reactions, and even your deepest sense of self will be dictated by the ever-shifting tides of passion and the relentless chase for external validation, rather than the calm, steady hand of reason. Ultimate freedom, as Epicurus and other great philosophers taught, isn't found in external circumstances. It's not about what you acquire or who approves of you or what goes right in your life. No true freedom resides in the mastery of your inner state. It's the profound liberation that comes from no longer being controlled by anger, fear, desire, or even fleeting joy. It's about observing these emotions, understanding their causes, and choosing your response from a place of clarity and deliberate intention. This path isn't easy, and it's certainly not for everyone. But for those who seek true power, unwavering clarity, and lasting peace, it's the only way. It demands courage to look inward, discipline to cultivate stillness, and a fierce willingness to challenge deeply ingrained societal patterns. But the rewards, that unshakable inner peace, that profound clarity, that genuine self-derived power, are immeasurable. They allow you to build a life of purpose and intention, free from the emotional turbulence that sidelines so many. So I invite you. What are your thoughts on this philosophy of emotional detachment now after hearing this perspective? Do you find yourself trapped by your emotions, or have you already begun to find freedom through stillness? Share your experiences, your insights, or even your challenges in the comments below. Let's create a space for honest, unfiltered discussion about these complex but vital ideas. Your story might be the very spark someone else needs to begin their own journey. And if this revelation resonated with you, if it offered a new way of seeing the world or yourself, please take a moment to like this video. Share it with someone who you believe needs to hear this powerful truth, and definitely subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into philosophy, self-mastery, and personal power. Your support truly helps this message reach more men seeking genuine liberation and inner peace. Thank you for being here and for doing the work.